Kakadosh, Boker Or, Masechet Batra Daf Kuf Zayin Amud Aleph 127a1. Ameimar Amar. Ameimar comes and he says, you remember that we said that if a person was born a tumtum, which means that he's covered over, so you don't know if it's a boy or girl. So Nachman ben Yitzchak comes and he says, it's not going to be Nidonko ben Sorer Moreh, but the Pasuk says, Ki yeli ish ben Sorer Moreh. Ad sheyeh ben mishat avayah, from the time of birth. Ameimar, there's a third din now. Ameimar Amar, Afeno mimayet chelek bechora. He's also not going to be mimayet chelek bechora. Shneimar v'yeldu lo banim, ad sheyeh ben bishat leda. So it has to be a ben bishat leda. It's coming to exclude a tumtum, that it's not nikar, that it was a ben bishat leda. The fourth din, Rav Shvizbi Amar, Af eno nimol lishmona. You don't do a brit milah on the eighth day. So imagine you have a boy, he's born, but you don't know he's a boy. It's a tuntum. They come, they do a thing, they uncover it. It's a boy. You don't do brit milah on the eighth day. The pasuk says, "Yishak dezivilda zachar, uvayom hashmini yimol." Ad sheyeh zachar mishat leda. It needs to be a zachar mishat leda to do brit milah on the eighth day. If it's not, you're not going to do it. Rav Shravya Amar, another, there's a fifth din now. Af enimo tmei leda. She's also not going to be tmei leda. The Amar Krab, as the pasuk says, Isha ki tazri av yelda zachar tmei shivat yamim. A woman that gives birth, she's going to be tmei for 7 days. What does that mean? Ad sheyeh zachar mishat leda. Until it's going to be a zachar mishat leda. Okay? Huh? Okay? Fine. So meitveh. So they're going to ask the following question. The Gemara says if a woman's going to come and she's going to be mapila avlad, whether it's going to be a tumtum or a doginos. Remember, a tumtum is covered over, and doginos is that it's got both. Okay, I don't remember how you said in English. It's a hetero. It's got both of the male and female. So teshev l'zachar v'lenekeva. It's going to be also for a zachar and also for a nekeva. So says the Gemara, Tiyuvta Rav Shravya. So this is going to go against Rav Shravya, right? Tiyuvta. Says the Gemara, it's actually going to be a good question against them. So Lema Tava Tiyuvta Rav Shizbi. So says the Gemara, why shouldn't it also be a Tiyuvta against Rav Shizbi? Because Rav Shizbi said that a tumtum that became a male, right, he's not going to be nimol b'Shabbat. So therefore, right, here it's mashma that a tumtum is like a regular leda. So he says, no. Tana safuke mesapkale. Our Tana has a safek. Therefore, since it has a safek, it goes lechumra. So says the Gemara, if so, the shev lezachav nekevav nidam bale. Why did it say that it's going to be? It said to shev lezachar nekeva. Shouldn't be only to shev lezachar nekeva. It's zachar nekeva velenida gamken. Right? Not only just zachar nekeva, but if you're going to tell me now, besides the shvuaim of tum'ah, that she has to do another chumrah, so therefore it's also maybe it's nida. So says the Gemara, right? From the fact that you didn't say nida, so it's not mashma the be'emet that it's mamash everything going lechumra. So all the safek is that is it a zachar or nekeva? Not like a shizbi. So says the Gemara, kasha, you're right. Be'emet, this is actually going to be a good question as well. It's a kasha. Okay, so this is the question that we just had. Amar Rava. Rava comes and he says, Tanya Kavate de Rabbi Ami. Right? We learned in accordance to Rabbi Ami. When it says, Vaya bena bechol sniya, is extra. So it's davka ben, right? Velo tumtum. So we learn from there that only a ben is going to notel pishnayim, but not a tumtum. When it says bechor, right? The bechor takes pishnayim. A bechor velo safek bechor. Right? The tumtum, we don't know. Maybe it's an ekeva. So since we don't know if it's a male or female, so it's not going to take pishnayim. So says the Gemara, Bishlama ben velo tumtum. I understand ben velo tumtum. Kid Rabbi Ami, I understand. Okay, makes sense. A ben is going to take pishnayim and not a tumtum. But bechor velo safek. What is the coming to issue bechor velo safek? Maze ba lelamed otanu. So he says lapuke midr darash Rava. This comes to that which Rava was expounded. The darash Rava shte nashim sheyaldu shnei zecharim memachveh. Yeah, what happens if you have two women? They had 2 boys, right? But it was in hiding, which means we don't know who was the first one born, right? And then you have other children. Now, the problem is you don't know who is the Bechor. So what do? כותבין הרשאה זה לזה. They write a ייפוי כוח to each other in order that for sure they're going to come and they're going to get one חלק of בכור. What do you mean שתיהם? Well, yes, there's only one חלק of בכור, but in order to get that חלק of the בכור, they have to write a ייפוי כוח to each other. Yes. Yeah. Whatever, well, yeah, they get the בכור. They get the בכור, but in order to get the בכור, you need a ייפוי כוח. So he says like this, he says, but one second, our Braita is teaching us that since this בכור is l'mayet safek, so therefore obviously they can't even do that. Because if it's a safek בכור on each one, they get nothing. מה זה עוזר לי עכשיו ייפוי כוח? כל אחד זה ספק בכור. On ספק בכור you don't get בכורה. So this is coming למעט, right? להפוקה מדרש רבא. So Elmaleh of Papa Rava says if Papa to Rava, Vashalach Ravin davar ze shalti lechol rabotai. Right? Did you know he said that I sent right from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, and this question to do with these two boys that we don't know who's the Bechor, I asked all my rabbis. Velo amru li davar. They didn't say anything. The Ramba they said kach amru mishum Rabbi Yanai. This is what they said in the bet midrash of Rabbi Yanai. Ukeru ulvasof nitarvu kotvina shazolazo. Only if you knew who was the Bechor. And then afterwards he got mixed up. Then they're going to write Harsha Zulazo. Avalo Kru, but if never you were able to know who was the Bechor, and Kutvin Harsha Zelaze. They do not write Harsha to each other. Why? Because they never had a Bechor. Meaning, if they had a Bechor, there was a Bechor Padai. עכשיו אחר כך היה בלבול בבית חולים, או לא יודע מה, fine. So, יכתבו הרשעה זה לזה וזהו. But here, אף פעם לא הוכרו. הדרו כי רב אמורה עלה, ודרש דברים שאמרתי לכם, טעות הם ידי, וגם כך אמרו משום רבי ינאי, והוכרו בזה וכותבים הרשעה זה לזה, לא הוכרו, so יוס חזר בזה. מה? לא הבנתי. נכון, דברים שאמרתי זה טעות. לא, אבל דברים שאמרתי זה טעות בידי. נכון, זה טעות. דברים זה טעות. הרבה אנשים אומרים הרבה דברים, אבל זה טעות. מה זה 4? איפה אתה רואה 4? כתוב פה. דברים שאמרתי לכם זה טעות. אוקיי. טעות. שלחו לבני אקרא דאגמא לשמואל. So they sent from the city of Akra de Agma. To Shmuel. Yelamdenu Rabenu. Teach us our rabbi, our teacher. Hayu muchzakin bazeh shu bechor. If they are muchzakin and somebody that is a bechor. Ve'amar aviv al acher shebechor hu. And the father says, somebody else is a bechor. Mao, what's halacha? מה?
ואבא אחד.
Yeah.
אז הוא אמר עליהם לאחד שהוא בכור.
כן.
מה הבכור?
היה חזקה שמישהו אחר הבכור.
מי?
על כולם.
היו שם.
כולם מדברים על זה, כולם יודעים את זה. אז זה השאלה. שלח להו, so he asked. כותבין הרשעה, they write הרשעה זה לזה. They write הרשעה. Yeah? זאת אומרת, if you've got a חזקה, yeah? So, if you have a chazaka, what's it going to help? He says, Mima nafshach. He says, 1 second. Ikra banan, kufkav zayin amubet, 127b. Ikra banan sviralei. If they hold like the rabbis, right, that a father is not going to be ne'eman, right, to be neged a chazaka, so lishlach lu banan. Just say the lachazak rabanan. Ikra Yehuda sviralei. And if it's going to be like Rabbi Yehuda, Yishlach le Rabbi Yehuda. So send like Rabbi Yehuda. What does that mean? We know there's such a concept of chazakah. So you have a chazakah. Yeah? בוא נגיד, יש לי חזקה. אליהו הבכור. עכשיו מישהו אומר, לא, אביו הבכור. כן? ומי אומר את זה? אבא. אז עכשיו...
אביו אמר איזה בכור.
אז עכשיו הוא הולך כנגד החזקה. זאת אומרת, היה חזקה, ועכשיו האבא הולך כנגד החזקה. אז שמואל הוא אמר, כותבים הרשעה. כן? למה? יכתבו הרשעה, וזהו, נגמר הסיפור. אבל שואלת הגמרא, doesn't make sense. if you hold like Rabbanan, the father is never נאמן כנגד חזקה. ובגלל שהיה חזקה שזה היה בכור, עכשיו שהאבא אומר, לא, השני הבכור, הוא לא נאמן כנגד חזקה.
איגוד אינטרסים, אבל...
ודאי. רק שנייה. והיא כרבי יהודה סבירה לה. ועכשיו, אם אתה אומר ששמואל, he holds like רבי יהודה, that argues on חכמים, and he holds that a father is believed נגד החזקה, so just hold like רבי יהודה. What's going on? Why does he say, שלח להוא, כותבים על שעה? Well, שעה. Tell me, is הלכה like רבנן, or like רבי יהודה? So answers the Gemara, mesafka like Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbanan. We have a doubt whether it's like Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbanan. So says the Gemara, where's this machloket? Maihi. Where's the machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan? So he says the Tanya. Yeah, we learned in a Braita. The Braita, it says Yakir. Maze Yakir. Yakir, Yakirenu. What does that mean? Yakir, when it says Ki eta bechor Yakir, right? Late lo pishnayim. Yakir means Yakirenu la'acherim. Mikan amar Rabbi Yehuda, from here Rabbi Yehuda says Ne'eman adam lomar ze beni bechor. This is my son, the bechor. Ushem shne'eman. Right, and just like he's going to be Ne'eman adam lomar ze beni bechor, kach Ne'eman adam lomar ze ben grusha ben chalutza. So to minute, ben adam yesh lo ne'emanut על הבן שלו. יכיר. יכיר הכוונה להכיר אותו לאנשים אחרים. איך אני מכיר אותו? אז עכשיו פתאום הוא מותר להגיד, זה הבן שלי מהאישה הראשונה. זה בן גרושה וחלוצה. זה בני בכורי. זה בן, הוא נאמן. שיטת רבי יהודה. יכירנו לאחרים. חכמים אומרים, חכמים כמדי saying, אינו נאמן. He's not going to be believed. Yeah, in any of these cases. Yeah, not on that he's a ben grusha וחלוצה, אלא תזכור, כשאתה אומר שהוא בן גרושה וחלוצה, מה קורה לילד? הוא נהיה חלל. Yeah, he's not a Kohen. He's ממש נהיה חלל. So therefore, he's going to be believed on everything. That's according to שיטת רבי יהודה. בן חלוצה, חליצה. אמא עשתה חליצה. Yeah. So he says, right, but he's not going to be believed. That's חכמים. So Elmaleh Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak l'Rava, Abisham Rav Yehuda nidichtiv Yakir. Ani mevin Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says Yakir, Yakirenu la'acherim. But according to Rabbanan, Yakir lamali. Why do I need Yakir? So he says no. Betzarich hekera. We're talking about that the father is believed on ben Mesuyam shetzarich la'akir. That means if we don't have a chazaka, yeah. So then the father comes and he says it's not neged chazaka. Im ha'abba ba v'omer zeh. עכשיו, אין לי שום חזקה, אני לא יודע מי הבכור, מי לא הבכור. אבא בא ואומר, זה הבכור. אז יקיר, אבא נאמן. וואי, זה לא כנגד חזקה. זה מבין? עושה זה גמרא, למה הלכתה? מה זאת אומרת? למה הוא נאמן? למה הלכתה? למת ולא לו פי שניים? Right? He says, what, to give him double? He says, לא יהיה לאחר. Even if it's going to be בן זה יהיה זר לגמרי, אילו בא למת ולמתנה, he can't give him a present? For sure, give him a present. So what does it mean then that you're coming in your כאילו, well, what's הלכה? יקיר מצד מה? אם אין חזקה, זה יכול להיות סתם איזה בן אדם, זר. It could be anybody. And he's giving him a present. He's allowed to give him a present. So he says, לא צריכה, בנכסים שלה אפלו לו לאחר מכן. We're talking about נכסים that they came afterwards. מה זאת אומרת afterwards? Right after he went and he said, זה בכורי, now you have like a מיגו. Rabbi Meir, the Adam makne davar shelo ba'olam, yakil lamli. According to Rabbi Meir, if right now we're talking about matana that came afterwards, so why do you need it? You could be makne davar shelo ba'olam. So answers the Gemara, b'nechasim shnaflu lo keshu goses. We're talking about nechasim that came to him when he was going to be a goses. Okay? Fine. Tanu Rabbanan. We learned in the Braita. Hayu muchzakin bo shehu bechor. Ve'amar aviv al acher shehu bechor. Ne'eman. Here you have a Braita that he is going to be Ne'eman. לא הבנתי, זה בדיוק הפוך מה שאמרת עכשיו. He's נאמן.
רק אם הם אומרים, הרב, למה הפוך?
מי זה הם אומרים?
בוא, אם מוחזקים ולא ישבו בחור, ואמר אביב על אחר שהוא בחור נאמן, מוחזקים בו שהוא בחור.
נאמן, מי נאמן?
אביב.
אז אביב נאמן כנגד החזקה.
שאינו בכור, ואמר אביב בכור, אינו נאמן.
זה הסייפה.
יפה.
אני ברישה עדיין.
אבל אמרתי לך, תכלס הלכה לפי מה? אתה אומר לי לא. זהו, בוא נמשיך, אבל. הכל בסדר, הכל בסדר. בוא נמשיך.
So the Braita again says, היו מוחזקים בו שהוא בכור, ואמר אביו על אחר שהוא בכור, נאמן. Which means here you're going to have a stira between the Reisha and the Seifa. The Reisha says if you have a chazakah that a person's a bechor, right, and then the father says somebody else is a bechor, he's going to be believed. Who is that? Who's the one that says he's believed? Rabbi Yehuda. The next part says, hayu machzakim bo she'eno bechor, right? If they have a chazakah on a child that he's not a bechor, and then the father says that he is a bechor, he's not going to be believed. So then this is like chachamim. So that's what the Gemara is going to ask. Reisha Rabbi Yehuda, the Sefer Rabbanan. How could you have a Braita, which the Braita has a stira in the same Braita? The former part of the Braita is going like Rabbi Yehuda, and the latter part of the Braita is going like Rabbanan. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, Amar benihu v'chazar, yeah, and now he says. So basically, it just finishes like that, but it doesn't actually say what the halacha is. It's just bringing down. You're right. The Reisha is Rabbi Yehuda. The Seifa is going to be Rabbanan of the same Braita. Okay. Now he comes and he says, right, like this. He says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan comes, right, and he says as follows: Nishamar benihu, bechazar v'amar avdihu. Imagine a person comes and he says, "This is my son." And then after 2 minutes, he comes and he says, "It's my Eved. It's Eved Kanani. Eno ne'eman. He's not going to be believed." Okay? Avdihu. Chazar v'amar benihu ne'eman. But if he said the opposite, whenever he said, "This is my slave," then afterwards he comes and he says, "This is my son." He is going to be believed. Why? Because he's משמש אותי כמו עבד. זה הכוונה כשאני אמרתי שהוא עבד. אבל לא שבאמת הוא עבד, הוא משמש אותי כמו עבד. Right? He serves me. Right? That's what the concept. Says the Gemara v'chilufe. Right? Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, and the opposite is a bet hameches. Right? On the bet hameches. Meaning, when they're going to come and ask him about his properties, the exact opposite is going to happen. A person will say on his servant that he's his son in order to be mavriach מהמכס. זאת אומרת, פעם, you have to give the income tax. So if you have a slave, it's an income. Yeah, you have, so what do you, it's my son. Then you don't have to pay on it. So he says, וחילופי בית המכס, היה עובר על בית המכס, ואמר בניהו. Imagine he's going past the בית המכס, and he says, בניהו. חזר ואמר עבדיהו, then afterwards he says it's his עבד, נאמן, he's going to be believed. Why? Why did he say that? He only said it because of the meches. Right? So that means he only said beni because of the meches, not because be'emet it's beni. Yeah? So fine. Amar avdihu ve'chazar. But if he said it's his eved, and now he says it's his son, for sure it's not going to believe it. Because there's no reason. It doesn't make sense. If be'emet it's his son, why is he going to start paying meches for some? It's his own son. So now that he changed, he's not believed. There's something there. There's a monkey business. There's something wrong. Okay, fine. Now the Gemara is going to ask on the second part, right? On the second psak of the first chelik of Rabbi Yochanan. Midway, right? We're going to ask the question: Hayam mishamsho keben. If right now you come and you have somebody that's mishamesh like a ben, uba amar, and then he comes and he says benihu, that he's my son. Vechazar ve'amar, right? And then afterwards he comes and he says avdihu eno ne'eman. He's not going to be believed, right? Why? We go to the first thing that he said, right? Hayam mishamsho ke'eved. What if he was serving him like an eved? Uba ve'amar avdihu. Says eved. Vechazar ve'amar benihu eno ne'eman. Here the Braita says eno ne'eman. The beginning of the in Rabbi Yochanan, in the beginning, he said avdihu vechazar ve'amar benihu ne'eman. Why? The mishamesh li kavda kama. He is ne'eman. Here we're seeing in the Braita, he's not ne'eman. So answers the Gemara. Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak says of Nachman bar Yitzchak, Hatam over there, the karule avda metzar mea. He says there, the person is calling him, he called him avda metzar mea, which is a toar that they only do on avadim mamash. Meaning it's kilu, they called him. It was like a terminology used for an eved, right? So therefore, the fact that he called him an avda metzar mea, so therefore it's only an eved. and that's why he's not going to be believed. So he says, what does that mean? My mitzar mea. What does it mean? Avda mitzar mea. So he says, mitzar avda mea zuzeh. The gvul of the eved is 100 zuz, which means this eved is worth 100 zuz. A person will never put a price on his son. So the fact that he went and he said that this avda is mitzar mea is worth 100 zuz, for sure it's an eved. No. He was serving me like an eved. No. You put a price to him, there's nothing to talk about. So Shalach le Rabbi Abba, the Rabbi Sever Chama, Haomelech Avro Avdi Ganaft, right? Imagine right now a person comes and he says to his friend, you stole my Eved. Vehu Omer, he says, Lo Ganavti, I never stole it. So he asks him, Mativot, so what's he doing by you? So he says, Toli, you sold it to me, right? Or you give it to me as a present. Or, right? So he says, Shava, Vetol. Says, if you want, swear that it's yours and take it. Venishba, and he swears that it's his Eved. Enu yechol lachzor bo. Yeah, he has to give it back to him. Meaning, once he went and he told him, if you want, swear and take it, he can't be chozer bo anymore. Because now he lost the opportunity. So for the second that he swears, he takes Eved. Yeah, and that's it. He takes Eved. Let's get to the two dots. My kamash malan. What is it coming to teach you? He says, Tanya, we already learned it once. We learned it in Mefurash in a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Amar lo, ne'eman alai abba, or ne'eman alai avicha. If a person comes and he tells his friend, and he's telling the opponent, right, the other one in court, your father is going to be believed, right? Or Abba Shali, Shiye Dayan, or Abba Shalcha, Shiye Dayan. Or ne'emanim alai shlosha roe bakar, or even three other people. Some, 3 roe bakar. They're going to be in charge. Rabbi Mi says, Yachol lachzor bo. He could be chozer bo. V'chachamim omrim, eno yachol lachzor bo. According to Chachamim, you can't be chozer. Meaning, according to Rabbi Meir, you're allowed to retract and say, you know what? No. Even though I said your father could be the Dayan or my father could be the Dayan or Shosha, no, I don't agree anymore. Says Chachamim, you cannot be chozer bo. So you see from here, Chachamim hold, you can't be chozer. So answers the Gemara, Kamash comes teach you to do with the machloket between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim is only in the case of Shanitba eten lecha, which means he's mitchayev l'shalem. Because there you could say that the mikre is that he was mekabel latzmo dayanim psulim or things like that if they're going to be mizakabatin, it's going to be a different halacha, right? And then he's going to be patur shalem. But here it's that I'm going to give it back to you. It's going to be a completely different halacha. But halacha is going to be like chachamim, which means even though, right, the halacha is b'derech klal karabim neged yachid, right, he still has to say, right, that Rabbi Abba is still saying that the halacha is like chachamim because here it's more mistaber the reasoning of Rabbi Meir. Meaning, Rabbi Meir is much more mistaber. At the end of the day, why wouldn't he be able to retract? He said something. It could be that at the beginning he said, yeah, ne'eman alai avicha, or Abba Shali, or Shosha. And that's what he wants to retract. He says, no, usually we don't have to say alachak rabim keneged the yachid. Here, Rabbi Meir is much more mistaber. So therefore, that's why we had to say that the halacha was like hachamim.